Do you want to see how the turkey population went from here to here? The answer might surprise you. It's one of the greatest conservation success stories. Wild turkeys are my favorite bird. Did you know they can run 18 miles per hour, fly up to 50 miles an hour, and can even swim? There is a resident flock of wild turkeys about a mile from our house. These birds are wild, but they are somewhat accustomed to human activity. Sometimes they even demand the right of way on the road. Everyone around here enjoys watching them, so drivers are happy to oblige. It's always fun to see them, so when my friend invited me to call in turkeys out in the woods, you know what my answer was? Yes, sir. We're gonna go find the turkeys before they wake up. This is my friend Nolan Cleaves. He is an avid outdoorsman and experienced turkey caller. He took us out in the Oklahoma woods early one April morning so we could watch and study wild turkeys during mating season. He set out decoys and we hid in some cedar trees. He told us it's real important to be still when calling in turkeys. That's because turkeys can see 3 times better than humans and are great at spotting danger. I did a great job being still. Dad was sort of so-so at it.
Nolan had set us up on a point that overlooked a grassy open pasture.
That's this point here with the red Lego.
400 yards to the south is a road that was fenced on either side.
Here's the road with a fence on each side.
Across a creek and over a half mile from our setup were some smaller trees that the turkeys were roosting in.
The turkeys were roosting about here.
We could also hear turkeys further away to the north of us and to the east of us. At dawn, the turkeys came down from their roost and got active. We could hear their gobbles.
Only the male turkeys gobble.
Many times they gobble simultaneously, so it could sound like just one bird. But Nolan's experienced ear told us there were 2, and they were getting closer to us.
At times, they would go quiet for a while, and we didn't know if they had gotten hung up or were just moving quietly. There were a few minutes of not knowing what they were up to, but suddenly our patience was rewarded.
They had crossed the creek, the fence, the road, and another fence, and were now in the pasture a little more than 300 yards below us.
They crossed the creek, the fences in the road, and they were right about here. It didn't take them long to close the distance. These 2 jakes were running. Jakes are what young male turkeys are called. They are about a year old, and this is their first mating season. When you call them straight to you like this, they say you are pulling them in on a string.
We'd been in position less than 30 minutes, and Nolan already had 2 jakes about 12 yards from us. It was a lot of fun watching these 2 beautiful birds up close. As they came in, they were strutting and showing off for the decoys. They made lots of sounds beside gobbles. They clucked and purred. Then they became puzzled by what was going on, and their behavior changed to curious and then suspicious. It was amazing how their movements and sound were coordinated. After a while, it was time to let them go find real hens, so we eased out from under the trees and took some more pictures as they moved back into the woods.
My first tag-along with a turkey caller was a big success. Now I know the thrill of calling in turkeys, and it made me curious to learn more. It turns out that the wild turkey is one of the greatest wildlife conservation success stories.
In the 15th century, there were an estimated 10 million wild turkeys in North America. Fast forward to the 1930s, and that number was all the way down to just 200,000. Facing potential extinction, conservation efforts began. These efforts stepped up greatly in 1973 with the establishment of the National Wild Turkey Federation. They led a massive and coordinated effort that raised the population back to the 7 million mark around 2005.
These maps show the success of that work. This map shows how far the habitat range of the turkeys had fallen by 1940. And this map is the habitat range in 2014. Zooey mama! That's great!
This work continues today, including studying and addressing a recent decline in turkey populations. The reasons for the decline are not completely understood, but everyone agrees habitat management is a key factor. In the almost 50 years since the founding of the National Wild Turkey Federation, it has conserved or enhanced 20 million acres of habitat, and about 25% of that was just in the last decade. Habitat conservation not only benefits the turkeys, but all wildlife, making the impact of these efforts enormous. Of course, these efforts are not cheap and would not happen without the funding from hunters.
We want to learn more about turkeys, conservation, and the role hunters play. So we met up with Tell Judkins from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife.
So my name's Tell Judkins, and I'm the upland game biologist with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. So that means that primarily I'm in charge of things like quail and pheasant here across Oklahoma, but I help out with turkey some too.
Okay. Question number 2. Are turkeys smart?
Are turkeys smart? I would say turkey are pretty smart because they outsmart me a lot.
Yeah, I almost said cookies.
Cookies aren't so smart. I outsmart them a whole bunch.
Yeah, they're just an object.
That's right.
Sorry,
turkeys have a fairly small brain, but that's in comparison to things like a coyote or a dog or a cat or something like that. But turkeys are actually pretty smart, and their vision is really, really good. That's why we've got to wear a lot of camo when we're out trying to either take pictures of them or harvest one.
Okay, question number 3. Can they tell if it's a decoy turkey?
If it's set up right, they can't. And that's one of the things about how decoys are so useful in trying to harvest a turkey. So it's kind of like whenever you're driving along, you're like, is that a person or is that a Halloween decoration or something like that? It kind of tricks your mind. But with the turkey decoys, they try to make them very realistic so that when the turkey comes up closer, even at really close distance, the turkey doesn't realize that it's not a real turkey. And so you'll actually see them sometimes like try to fight the decoy or try to get like real close to them like boyfriend and girlfriend if it's a girl decoy.
Okay, 4. How well can turkeys see and hear?
So hearing is not that great on them. So a lot of times hunters will use either an owl call or a crow call, and it's really just a loud noise. Even I've had them work with like banging a trash can lid or on a drum will make the turkeys kind of start to gobble. That's what they call a shock gobble. They've heard something loud and they've got to show, hey, I'm out here. I'm a bigger, badder bird than you are. But their vision is really where they're really, really keen. They're really, really sharp with their vision. So kind of what colors does a turkey have on it? And I've got a picture of one here.
Oh, they have blue and They have blue on their head.
They got blue on their head, and they've got some red down here on their neck, and then white also, but their bodies are kind of brown and black.
They're mostly black.
Yeah. So when we're out in the turkey woods, we really want to avoid wearing red, white, and blue, because that's the sign that, hey, I'm an aggressive male and this is my territory. And so we don't want to wear our American flag hat when we're out in the woods, or even your Okie School of Adventure hat there. We want to wear a camo hat so that we're able to actually blend into the trees that we're hiding in.
And camouflage clothes,
Yep,
too.
absolutely. So their vision's pretty good.
Okay. How far from home do turkeys travel?
You know, it kind of depends on how far away the things that they need are. So kind of like how far away is the grocery store to us. So in general, turkeys are only going to travel within a few miles of kind of their roost site. And their roost site's kind of like their bedroom. That's where they're going to go to sleep at night. Mm-hmm. So they don't want to get too far from those trees because they want to get back to them that night.
Okay. 6. What do turkeys eat?
Turkeys eat a lot of different things. Mostly they're going to eat insects and seeds from plants that we normally call like weeds. But turkeys will also eat like small lizards, frogs, and other just kind of small things that they've come across while they're out walking along doing turkey things.
Okay. Number 7. What things eat turkeys?
So one, people do. Every Thanksgiving, right?
Every
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I already know that answer. I know that answer.
So people eat turkeys, but also things like opportunistic carnivores. And so that's things that just kind of get lucky and catch a turkey. So things like a coyote might eat a turkey. Things like a bobcat might go after a turkey.
Yeah.
And those predators like that. But you also have like the turkey nest when they've got their eggs. There's a whole different set of different critters that'll try to eat the eggs, like raccoons and possums and snakes and skunks, and those kind of animals that we call mesocarnivores.
Yeah. What is a mesocarnivore?
So a mesocarnivore means not like the top of the food chain carnivores and not like the bottom of the food chain guys either, but those ones that are kind of right there in the middle, or the meso.
Yeah, that was my guess.
Yeah. So that's going to be your mid-sized predators like your raccoons, your possums, your skunks, things like that.
Okay, now on to question number 8. Anyway, can you tell us about the nesting habits of turkeys?
So the nesting habits of turkeys, that's a really good question. So generally, turkeys are going to find a spot that is kind of tall grass, kind of like it is out here, so that they've got this burying structure. So if you think about it in like really, really short stuff, like the trail we walked in when we came down here was almost bare ground, right? And then you've got grass that's a little taller, maybe 2 or 3 feet tall. And then you've got the trees out here that are 13, 14 feet tall. So they want to find that kind of middle ground, especially around like shrubs and those tall grasses, and that's where they're going to make their nests for the year. The females will stay there on the nest, and so the females don't have this bright red head and blue head and white head. They're more kind of drab like just plain colored. So that helps them camouflage right there in that tall grass. And they're going to stay there on that nest for about 21 to 23 days. That's how long it takes the eggs to hatch. And then they've got poults. Poults are what we call baby turkeys. And then they're going to take care of those poults for several weeks until those little baby turkeys become bigger turkeys and are able to take care of themselves. So generally, a turkey's going to lay an egg about once a day. So that takes a lot of calcium out of their body and a lot of nutrients to process that shell around the embryo. So it may take 6 or 7 days to lay a clutch of eggs. And that's with most birds, even chickens and pheasant and quail and all of those. And even like your songbirds will do that over a period of days. And it's kind of like if we were to take the eggs out and put them in the refrigerator for a few days, or let them sit and then we put them in the incubator. That's going to make all of the babies hatch out at kind of the same time frame. Otherwise, we'd have an egg get kicked out of the nest once we had a couple of kiddos in it. And that kind of puts everybody on an even playing field. Clutch size can be anywhere from like 8 to 16, so they can have quite a few eggs in there.
Yeah, quite a few eggs.
Yep.
All right. Question number 9. What species of wild turkeys do we have in Oklahoma? And is there much difference between them?
So what kind of turkeys did you guys go see?
Well, a little bit of turkeys like this.
Turkeys like that one? So there's actually a map right here that you guys can use. So there's 3 different kinds of turkeys in Oklahoma. The most common kind is called the Rio Grande turkey. And then there's a little bit of strip where there's a hybrid, which is the combination of 2 different kinds. So there's the Easterns in far eastern Oklahoma. Then there's a hybrid, Rio and Eastern. And then all the way out in the Panhandle, the very far northwestern tip of Oklahoma, there's some Merriam turkeys.
Okay. So where did we where were we on this map, Dad?
We were in Lincoln County.
So you were right in here. So that's in the green color. That's going to be the Rio Grande turkeys, or Rios is what most people call them.
Do you remember when we were at Black Mesa, buddy? Where's Black Mesa on the map?
Black Mesa's about up in the corner.
Yep, all the way up here. Actually, all the way up in the corner.
All the way up the corner.
So it's going to be in that brown.
Yeah, it's turkeys had Rio Grande. He had Rios.
The Merriams.
Merriams.
Yep.
The Merriam hybrids.
Yep.
So is there much difference between them?
One of the big differences on Merriams is you'll get a fringe around the tail fan. And big time turkey hunters, they can point out all sorts of little differences. But the general kind of rule of thumb is there's this white trim almost around the feathers.
Okay. Now question number 10. How is our turkey population doing?
So turkeys, like a lot of upland birds, are actually in decline over the last few years and for the last few decades, really. So in decline means that they're going down a little bit. And a lot of that comes down to things like habitat loss. So you see this big green tree here behind me? Mm-hmm. That's called an eastern red cedar. And those things grow like crazy. They grow faster than you do. So those eastern red cedars, they use a lot of water, and they take up a lot of space. Mm-hmm. And so right around in here, they'll actually also take up that bedroom I was talking about, so that roost cover that we were talking about. So these little eastern red cedars will grow up real big around those roost trees, and then those turkeys can't use the roost trees anymore. So habitat loss, losing their houses, is one of the main things that's really impacting those turkeys.
Question 11. What are some things in the wildlife department does manage the population?
Well, one, we do outreach education, and that's things like this right here, where we're just talking to people that are wondering about turkeys.
Yeah.
One of the big things that we do is we have projects that we do or help that we do off of our wildlife management areas. That's the properties that we manage, and then things that we do on those WMAs. So off of the WMAs on like private property, we can go out and help educate and help develop a plan to make an impact or improve that property for the turkeys on that property for that landowner. On our WMAs, we do a lot of different things, like getting rid of those eastern red cedars. Prescribed fire is one of the big tools that we use. And just making sure that their house has everything that they need in it. It's like, what's in your house that you need? You got to have a kitchen, someplace with food.
Yeah, a kitchen, a living room, a bedroom, and some other rooms like an office. If you want to do if you have to do work.
Okay? That's true. So let's just say that we're a turkey. Turkeys don't really have jobs. So you're right though. They need a bedroom, someplace to sleep at night. They need a living room, someplace to relax and just kind of hang out. They need the kitchen where they can go get food. They need a bathroom too. Let's face it, everybody needs a bathroom.
Yeah.
But if we make sure that a property has all of those things on it, so a bedroom, it's got roost trees that turkeys are able to use. It's got a kitchen. It's got all of the food resources that a quail needs. It's got that living room. So it has loafing cover, escape cover, and thermal cover. So those are all different types of living rooms, if you will. So thermal cover is a place to get either out of the cold or out of the heat, or like we're doing, out of the wind. The escape cover is someplace they can run to get away from a predator like a bobcat or that coyote I was talking about. Loafing cover is a place where we can just kind of sit down and enjoy our meal or relax and digest, kind of like our lazy boy recliner. We can just sit back and rub our belly after a big meal. Mm-hmm. So as long as land managers, whether it's on a WMA or private property, are making sure that all those components of the house are there, we're managing for turkeys.
Alex, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So can you describe a little bit more about the prescribed burn and how that helps?
Absolutely. So prescribed fire is a really, really important tool. So if we think back in Oklahoma history, like 10,000 years ago, that's way back there. That's even older than Dad there, right? So 10,000 years ago, there was one tool being used. That was prescribed fire. And so the Native Americans used that for generations because they learned that even though we've got this really cool ecosystem throughout Oklahoma of different types of lands and areas all across the state, fire really kind of helps to manage it and control it and kind of tame it in a way that it stays in a constant state of regeneration. So if we look just around us here, it's really gotten dense, right? Like you can't really see very far over there or back over here. You just really get really dense with trees. Prescribed fire would be a tool that would really help us to manage that. Out here it's kind of tough just because we're really close to the city. It really helps us open up the land so that other things other than just grasses and trees are able to grow. So a lot of those plants called forbs, those are the plants that a lot of people call weeds, like dandelions and things, that those weeds can grow, or those forbs can grow and produce seeds and attract insects and different bugs that those turkeys are going to eat. So it really kind of helps to balance the ecosystem, or the food web, or the food system, however you want to call it.
Okay, so question number 12. What role do hunters play in conservation?
Hunters play a really big role in conservation. So I know you got to go out with a hunter the other day and kind of see some turkeys and call them in. And, you probably had like a shotgun out with them and some of those things. So hunters play a very vital role in conservation because, well, hunters really are footing the bill. They're paying for most of it. So every time that hunter buys bullets or a gun or even a fishing pole or fishing lures, there's taxes that are put on those things at the manufacturer. And those taxes go into a big pool of money that states like Oklahoma are able to use to put conservation into the ground.
Yeah.
And ultimately, hunters are the people that really care about those animals. Because if I'm a turkey hunter, I want to hunt turkeys next year, right? So you went and saw turkeys. You probably want to see turkeys next year, right? So I want to do my part to ensure that that happens. And whenever I have kiddos, I want to make sure that my kiddos have a chance to see turkeys and their kiddos have a chance to see turkeys. And so conservationists are really, hunters play a really big role in that, of making sure that the future of conservation, the future of wildlife is there. Back around statehood, so 1900s, 1907 is when Oklahoma became a state, right? Right? I think I got that right. So back in that time, wildlife had been what they called exploited. It had been taken advantage of. So there wasn't really a lot of rules that governed how we can hunt and how we can fish, and there was a market for it. The same as like if you grow chickens and Walmart wants a bunch of chickens, you take them a bunch of chickens, right? So back before game wardens and ODWC and any of those agencies across the nation, people took advantage of wildlife, and that led to the drop in numbers of a lot of things. It led to some animals going extinct. You know what that means?
What?
It means that they're not here anymore. Like dinosaurs. Those are extinct, right?
Yeah, they were extinct at a time humans still exist.
Well, right, but that's what extinct means. They're gone. We can't ever have them back. So even things like the passenger pigeon, that's one that went extinct not too long ago. And it went extinct because it had pretty feathers, and people wanted them to put in their hats because they thought it would make them look cool. It's kind of sad, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the same with turkeys. Turkeys have some pretty feathers, and some people want those in their hats. And they really kind of want their beards. You probably saw one of the beards hanging off of the neck of the turkey.
Yep.
So those little things led to what we call over-harvest or over-exploitation of those birds. And it led to their numbers really, really going down.
Yep.
Several decades ago, the ODWC launched an effort to try to trap some turkeys in areas of the state where they were doing good and move them to areas where we had done the habitat work and it looked really good and it was going to be great for turkeys. And so that's one reason that we have turkeys all over the state today. Now today we're facing things like the weather. It's crazy in Oklahoma, right? I mean, today we had crazy winds. We're supposed to have a freeze by the end of the week. So all of that makes it tough to live outside. And then when we combine that with things like that habitat loss we talked about earlier, that can really have an impact on the current status of the turkeys.
Now, question 13. I almost lost track.
I almost did too.
What are some things everyone can do to help turkeys?
So some things everyone can do to help turkeys. So on a given property, you can do a lot of things for turkeys. One, you can help to make your property safe for insects like bees and butterflies and things like that, pollinators. So allowing some of those weeds to grow that otherwise we're going to spray out because we want our lawns to look pretty, that would help. So if a butterfly lands on a plant in your yard, and then flies over into a big pasture where there's a turkey and becomes turkey food, you did your part in helping turkeys, right? So another thing we can do is get rid of some of those eastern red cedars that we talked about, or some of those other problematic species, and do our part to make sure that those really don't spread, don't become even more of a problem. That's a couple things everybody can do.
Are nest robbers a major threat to turkeys? If so, are there things we can do to help? It's 2 questions in one, so we actually had...
So there's like 16 questions, right?
16!
All right, so we'll go the first one first. How about that? Are nest robbers a major threat to turkeys? So nest robbers can definitely be a problem, but as far as a major problem, that's going to be the weather and habitat. Now, there's things that we can do if the weather is perfect and the habitat's perfect and we're still not seeing the turkeys that we want to see. We might be able to do something by the nest robbers or those predators that we were talking about. So other types of hunting or harvest, like trapping of fur bears. So that gets at some of those mesocarnivores, the coyotes, the raccoons, the bobcats, the skunks, all those things that are those nest robbers. We can help to control their population. Now, if we do that before the habitat work, we're probably not going to make a lot of progress. But we can definitely do something there to try to help improve those numbers.
How do you do population counts on turkeys?
So one of the tools that we use to help track turkeys and keep an idea of turkeys, we actually have an app on our cell phone. It's called the Game Bird Brood Observation app. And it's available on Android and iPhone. And so even when you're driving around, well, not you, I hope, but when Dad's driving around, and you see some turkeys that have some babies or those poults out there, you can actually log in, hit a couple of buttons, and report that sighting. And that helps us keep an idea of how well the nesting period went for that year. From that, we can get some information on like when babies started to hatch or when those poults started to hatch. And then kind of when the poults stopped hatching and how well they were doing throughout the summer season. We also can use tools like roadside surveys, and we can also look back at previous years on how many hunters there were or how many turkeys were harvested in each year and get an idea of the trend of how many people are going out hunting and how many people are harvesting turkeys.
Okay. Thank you very much for teaching me more about turkeys.
You're very welcome. I'm glad we were able to get together and talk turkey.
Talk turkey.
That's right. What's a turkey say? Gobble, gobble, gobble?
Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Well, that's what I say at Thanksgiving. Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Gobble. There's so much to learn about turkeys. For now, I am just thankful for the people making turkey conservation happen.
That includes organizations like the National Wild Turkey Federation and state wildlife departments. One of the best state agencies anywhere.
And people like my new friend, Tell Judkins at Oklahoma Department of Wildlife. And hunters like my friend Nolan Cleaves, who provide passion, sweat, and the very important funding behind conservation efforts. Thanks to these people and others like them, these spectacular birds have a bright and healthy future. See you on our next adventure.